If you grew up in the late 20th century, it's very likely you watched a lot of movies on television. Not any major blockbusters, mind you. Oh no, I'm talking about stuff that would make Uwe Boll look like Steven Spielberg. Yes, we're talking about the kind of stuff that the MST3K crew would either salivate at or fear. Cheap-ass B-movies that nowadays would be released direct to DVD or Netflix, but back then were ultimate filler for a late-night TV lineup, which only grew with the advent of cable. And for those who grew up in the 1990s, there may not have been a more famous block for said movies than USA Up All Night. Premiering in 1989, Up All Night was pretty much what it says on the tin. It was the USA Network's late night block that aired usually 3 movies on Friday and Saturday nights, accompanied by comedy sketches and other bits from the C-list celebrities that hosted the movies, which we'll get to in a bit. But let's start with the meat of what USA Up All Night was clearly about. The movies. Given that this was a late night block on a cable network, you weren't expecting the latest blockbusters to be viewed here. What type of artistic endeavors in moving celluloid did you instead see in this intrepid block? Yeah, that type. Yes, indeed, you got such legendary works of film artistry as Bikini Summer, a movie about a bunch of 20-year-olds deciding to host a bikini contest in order to raise money to save the local beach from being destroyed by developers. In other words, the type of movie that South Park parodied in that episode where they went to Aspen. And yet somehow that episode came off as less of a parody than this. But if that's not your cup of tea, the next week you just might get The Malibu Bikini Shop, featuring 2 brothers that inherited their grandmother's bikini store, where of course we have the anal retentive brother who wants to sell the place so he can move on to his perfect life with his annoying fiancée, and the slacker brother who wants to keep it so he can spy on the customers with 2-way mirrors in the changing rooms. Classy! And yes, this is the movie now known online for having the song Girls of Rock and Roll, which got a cover in the Chipmunk Adventure movie. I still have no clue how they got away with that or the Getting Lucky number. Let's just say this. Of the movies that aired on USA Up All Night, according to Wikipedia and other sources, at least a dozen of them included the word bikini or beach, just in case you weren't sure of what demographic they were looking to draw. And that's not even including the likes of Hot Moves, which was all about 3 high school seniors on a mission to lose their virginity before they graduate. Yes, they made the plot of American Pie 15 years earlier, and with about 1/15 of the charm. Or Party Camp, which is basically Meatballs if it was written by Penthouse Magazine. Or Hots, all about a group of college girls who get revenge on a high-class sorority that rejected them by forming their own anti-sorority that's devoted to TNA. Now, I guess that's better than sending a serial killer after them all. There were other types of films that aired, including a few slasher and thriller movies, but it's pretty clear what specific type of film was targeted for this block. These films were clearly made by people who wanted to make porn, but didn't want to have the stigma of making porn. So the result is a bunch of movies made primarily for titillation, meaning and good story and characters were an afterthought, but in order to keep the films from being relegated to the back alley theaters, the sex and nudity were held to a bare minimum. So there was never enough of it to make it good spank material, so in the end, no one gets satisfied. No one except maybe the horny 15-year-olds that tuned in after mom and dad were in bed, because this was the closest they could get to actual porn. Even as the little actual nudity and sex that were in the original cuts got censored out so they could actually air the movies on TV. Yes, this was how desperate teenagers were before the internet. But it's not like the movies were USA Up All Night's only drawing card. Oh no, there was one other big reason people tuned in.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to USA Up All Night with me, Rhonda.
Okay, two big reasons. Yes, anchoring the Friday night block each week was Rhonda Shear, a former Miss Louisiana who you might remember as the waitress from the diner scene in Spaceballs. Actually, the original Friday night host was Carolyn Schlitt, but Shear replaced her in January 1991.
Hi, it's Rhonda with 2 hot movies, an international superstar, and lots of pasta here at La Trendy on USA Up All Night.
Now, let me preface this by saying I cannot say and have no real reason to believe that Rhonda Shear was and acted like her on-screen persona in real life. With that being said, her persona in these promos and skits is, how do I put this as nicely as possible? She's a bimbo!
I'll be showing you all kinds of fabulous things that Catalina Island has to offer. Besides me.
Do you have any tips for Rhonda?
Yeah, I do. Well, basically, the first thing you have to do is distract the other team.
Distract the other team. I can do that. Okay.
Yeah, so there's no rules, so you've got to utilize all your attributes.
Utilize all your attributes. Okay.
I knew I should have stocked up on liquid IQ before this season. And yet, by some miracle of nature, there actually are times where Rhonda can reveal a little bit of a snarky side toward the softcore she's hosting. Almost as if she could have been another Elvira.
Our first movie is Bikini Summer, but don't let the title mislead you. It's not the kind of movie you think it is. Well, maybe it is. Last time I saw that much jiggling, I was trying on bras during an aftershock. Our first film is all about a college senior who dies in a car crash while en route to get a condom. Talk about your safe sex.
Coming up, the conclusion of 976 Evil. And let me tell you, you'll love the ending of this movie. Why? Because it's the end and not the beginning of this movie.
By the way, yes! She does do that uber inflection of up whenever she says the name of the block. Every single time. It begins to grate on you after a while.
Next on USA Up, 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 All Night.
Her other known trademark was ending each night by literally kissing her own ass.
From the keeper of the sizzle kiss, if it's LA, it's Rhonda Up All Night. Nighty-night.
And thus, every teenager watching had to make one last trip to the bathroom before they finally could go to bed. Of course, Rhonda was only the host for the movies Up All Night aired on Friday nights. So, who was their host for Saturday?
Look, it's bad enough that I have to put up with annoying news people before the show. Do I have to put up with annoying people on the show, too?
Gah! Good freaking night, USA! Half your audience is gonna get hospitalized for severe whiplash! Yes, just 24 hours after you spent the night drooling and retreating to your bunk for the girliest of girly girls, Saturday nights gave you Gilbert Gottfried.
Tonight, it's a special show with a special guest. He's sexy, he's controversial, he's hotter than ever, and he's dead.
Though believe it or not, Gottfried was hosting this block before either of his curvaceous counterparts, since the Up All Night block didn't actually expand to Fridays until about halfway through that 1989 inaugural season. As far as him being the host, there's not much to say. He's Gilbert Gottfried. Every single character you've seen him play whenever the script called for an annoying curmudgeon with a grating voice, yeah, that's him in these promos.
We'll be watching two movies. The first is the touching tale of two brothers that gets totally lost because all you'll be looking at are girls in bikinis. Do you have anything more cosmic to show me?
Yes, read my book, On Common Sense.
Good, in the middle of everything, she throws in a cheap book plug.
And yet, in the most shocking thing you've ever heard in the history of this review show, words you never thought would ever come out of my mouth, I love this guy. Yeah, I have a soft spot for a loudmouth jerk whose voice no one can stand. What a shock. This guy was right up there with Alf and Garfield among my heroes growing up. Other than that, there's not much else to say. The block had about a 6-year run with these two showing raunchy B-movies. Well, raunchy for the time at least. And probably a lot of boys learned sex ed through them because they grew up in repressed towns that wouldn't allow schools to teach them what their bodies were going through. So, what ultimately caused the demise of USA Up All Night? 3 guesses and the first 2 don't count. Yep, our old friend network meddling. In 1997, Fox founder Barry Diller bought up the USA Network and with it put it under a whole regime change, forcing out USA founder Kay Koplovitz and claiming he wanted the network to draw a higher class of audience. Does this sound in any way familiar? Let me put it this way. Much like with Jamie Kellner and WCW, Barry Diller is pretty much the reason Monday Night Raw was off USA for 5 years after the turn of the century. The only difference is Vince McMahon got a head start and negotiated a deal with another network before USA could lower the boom. Up All Night was not given that opportunity. The demise was slow, as first Shear and Gottfried were given the boot, and then the network began airing more mainstream films in the time slots, which is probably how the likes of 10, Airplane, Adventures in Babysitting, and Back to the Future Part 2 ended up on the list of movies that aired here. The Up All Night block was officially dead by 2002 when all the bumpers and ads with that name were completely removed from the movie airings. And on that day, I'm sure a lot of 20-year-olds who grew up having the hots for Jessica Hahn rubbed one out in tribute. Good night. This is probably the bluest episode we've ever done. I'm not gonna say this was a great TV program by any stretch, but hey, it knew what it was and what its target audience was. Horny teens whose only other source for sex on screen was watching the scrambled pattern on Cinemax and hoping they caught sight of a nipple. And this was really the only time when such a block really would have succeeded with its shameless fan service movies and the girly girl most known for hosting them. As far as what's happened to that host and her curmudgeon colleague, Rhonda Shear seems to be doing alright, currently selling her own line of makeup and lingerie. While Gilbert Gottfried, well, he did just recently appear in an AVGN video. That's something, I guess. If you have fond memories of this block, good for you, I suppose. But let's not go whining about how it's not around anymore. You can surely find any of those movies online if you search hard enough, along with a bunch of other stuff that will probably give you even more of what you wanted to see. Seriously, just input bikini in the Netflix search bar. I will not confirm or deny having watched anything you'll find there. See you next time on TV Trash!